Our presenter today is Kim Lesk. We have a lot to get through. Kim is an education solution specialist. She's based in Pittsburgh. Kim, thank you for leading us today. Thank you for everyone for joining in. You'll see more of me at the end of the session. I'll come back then. Thanks, Kim.
No problem. Hi, everyone, and welcome. We're going to turn off our cameras just so they're not super distracting as we're going through. But this is me. I have been an Edmentum consultant. Oh, I should update that. Boy, this hasn't been updated in a while. For actually 9 years now. I'm a former English teacher. I taught at the high school level. I also taught 6th and 7th grade at times. I was a cyber school teacher and a course developer. So that's my background. I've been working with Courseware for my entire time at Edmentum. So today, this is our agenda. We are going to talk about, first of all, what is Courseware? What are some ways that you can use it in your schools? And then we're going to go through some account setup, doing some things that we need, some basic things that we need to do to get Courseware set up and ready to go for teachers and for students. So we'll be creating a program. We'll talk about adding users. We'll also go over different roles, not necessarily for students, but for staff. And then we'll look at some different account settings, ways that you can set up single sign-on. And then we'll talk about creating course sections and enrolling students. Now, with any luck, that will not take us too long, and we'll have some time for question and answer at the end. As we're going through, please feel free to put your questions in the Q&A, and then Adam will filter them to me, and I'll be able to answer them. We'll answer them either in the moment, if that's where we are, or we'll save them for after for the Q&A session. Okay, so let's get started. Let's talk about what Edmentum is. First of all, really we're looking at this piece of our products. Courseware is a digital curriculum, okay? And it is 6 to 12. So this is a curriculum solution that you can use in a lot of different places in your school. A lot of our schools started out using it for credit recovery. You know, I'm going to point out that especially this year where schools have a huge need for credit recovery, this has been a big deal. Because of the pandemic and all of the learning loss and everything like that, we've just had schools that need, that have 2, 3, 4 times as many kids who need credit recovery this year than previous years. So this is one way we can use this. But there are more uses to this than just credit recovery. These courses are standalone courses that can be used as complete online cyber curriculum. So that means if students need to take some extra classes, maybe things don't fit into their schedules, that's something we can do here. I have students who want, to take German, but our German teacher just left. We're still in the process of hiring another one. What can I do in the meantime? This is a place to go. And the other thing I want to point out too is, in addition to first-time credit recovery, what I am really encouraging people to think about this year is unit or skill-based recovery with Courseware. So what we want to do is, we know that we have a lot of high school students across this country who are missing credits because of the pandemic. Worst case scenario is they get back to school this year and end up tacking on more credits that they need to recover. We don't want that situation. So what we can do instead is use Courseware piecemeal throughout the year so that students don't get into a credit recovery situation to begin with. So for example, if I have a student in Algebra 1 and they're struggling with specific skills or a specific unit, they've maybe failed the unit test or they're failing assessments as they go through. I note that there's a problem there. I can assign them material from our Courseware program and allow them to go through, relearn it, work with that student, and then replace the failing grade with the grade from Courseware so that they're able to pass Algebra 1 instead of getting into a credit recovery situation with Algebra 1. So think about that too as we're talking about this and going through. Okay, so I'm going to take us into Courseware. Please note this is my demo account. This is going to be a little messy because of this, but we'll get in there. Okay, so this is my landing page within Courseware. What we're going to do is we're going to start in the black navigation bar at the top of the page. So if you're an administrator and you have admin rights, what you are going to see on your account the very first time you log in is 3 of these buttons. You'll see Admentum Sensei. That's the page we're on right now. This is really a data management piece for teachers. You'll see Flex assignments. And then you'll see Administration Center. A lot of what we're going to talk about today takes place in the Administration Center because this is where we need to start. We really need to do some system setup before we can get classes created, students enrolled in those classes, and so on. So I'm going to start over here in Administration Center. And this is what you'll see. So I have 5 tabs here. I have reports, users, programs, gradebook, and settings. We are going to start in users. So what I have the option to do here is I can create users 2 different ways. I can put them in one by one. So if I have a small group, maybe I'm a small school and I have just 2 teachers who are working with credit recovery. I'm going to want to put those in one by one. That's an easy manual, quick little task. But if I have something like 300 students that I need to put into the account, that is going to take place under batch processing. So I can make a spreadsheet with all of their information and upload it to the system. So we're going to go through both. We're going to look at creating a user one by one first. So we're going to go to users and manage. This will allow you to see all the users in the account. And we're going to start here above the last name column. There is a button that's going to say create a user. I want to show you this just so you can see all of the information that's in here. The only required information is the stuff that's starred here. So user status, system role, first name, last name, grade level, etc. But there are going to be a couple of options that I'm going to strongly recommend as we're going through. So the first thing here is user status. Well, that's active, right? We want them to be able to log in, that's active. Now the system role. So you're going to see there's a lot of roles here. The only one for students is learner. That's it. That's all students can be put in as. Now the rest are very specific. So there's the account administrator. If you are an account administrator, you have access to everything in your account. So let's say, for example, I'm a school and I am running a credit recovery program. I am running let's say, a first-time credit for a couple of my students who can't fit classes into their schedules. Maybe they want to take some extra classes or extra electives. So I'm running a program for them. And then I'm also figuring I'm going to be running a summer school this coming summer of 2022. Well, those 3 programs I really need to be separate within the account. And I don't really want to overlap because, teachers who are working with the first time credit don't necessarily need to see summer school and vice versa. So as the account administrator, I have access to all 3 of those programs. But I can designate certain teachers to be program administrators. So what does that mean? A program administrator cannot see everything in the account. You as the account admin will designate what they can see. So for example, if I have a teacher who is working with my credit recovery students and they're charged with doing credit recovery throughout the year, I'm going to make a teacher a program administrator specifically for credit recovery. That teacher can add students one by one, they can create classes, they can put students in those classes and so on. But they cannot touch the summer school or the first time credit programs. Okay. You'll see read-only program administrator. This is often used for guidance counselors who need reports. They can go in there and pull reports, but they can't make any changes. Instructors, these are teachers. Now, the instructor role in here is a little bit different than in most programs. So the instructor role is very locked down. Teachers in here are really monitors. So as a teacher, you as the administrator would assign classes to me. So let's say, Kim, you're going to teach English 9 this year. We have you in the English 9 classes. I can go in and see classes you've created for me and students you've assigned to those classes. And then I can go through and do the day-to-day management of those classes and work with those students in the program. But I am not going to be the one setting up those classes. That will be the admin. And then read-only instructor, again, that would simply be for someone who needs data from a class or a couple of classes, and then learners or students. Okay. So I can go in, first name, last name, grade level is required. I'm going to show you the student screen on this, just because I want to show you the extras. The thing I recommend putting in here for students that is not required is the SIS ID number. So any number that students have, so student number, a lunch number, something like that, something that I can identify students, definitely put in here. And the reason why I ask for that, I mean, it really can be any random number you choose, but makes, you know, updating students in large groups of students much easier later on down the road. Okay. The other thing that is not required right now is the email address, but if you are a Google or a Microsoft school, put in an email address, your school email address for teachers and for students, because that's what enables the single sign-on through Google and Microsoft. You'll create a username and password. Now, the one thing you're also going to want to do, and this is not required, but it should be, is to associate the user with an account structure location. So you can see this is my school district. That's the overarching account. And then, you know, school 1 is my elementary school, school 2 is my middle school, school 3 is my high school. So I can place the student or the teacher in the correct building. I can basically associate them with different buildings. Okay. If you need to add schools to your account, so if I was looking at this and maybe I actually have 2 elementary schools, but I only see 1 listed here, please email our support team at support@edmentum.com and they can add it in for you. Now for students, there are going to be demographic information. This is entirely optional. You don't have to put this in, but this is something that if you want to track, let's say Title I students, you know, maybe you have a population who's in the armed forces or, you know, socioeconomic status or special needs, things like that. All of that can be tracked in here. Again, this is not for Edmentum's purposes. This is solely for your reporting and tracking purposes. We don't track any of this. And then this is also post-secondary adult because we have a lot of those learners in here. There's demographic information for them as well. Now, all of this can be used in spreadsheet form. So again, I'm not expecting you to put 300 students in here by hand. That would be ridiculous. So what we can do is we can actually batch process this. So I'm going to hit batch processing. And what you're going to see is you are going to be able to upload a file. And here is the tab that shows the file format specification. So it'll show what's required, what values you can put in here, max character size, and so on. So if you format your file correctly, again, I would also recommend SIS ID, and then email address is required for the single sign-on. I would put all of this information in a spreadsheet. You can also download a sample file that will show you exactly what you need to do. And you fill in the required fields and any of the optional information that you want associated with it. You come back here, you upload the file, and then this is what you'll see. It'll actually bump you back to this page and you'll see either completed or completed with errors. If you see something that says completed with errors, if you click on this little disk icon, here's what it'll load. And you can see exactly why I was trying to mess around with this. But this is actually what you'll see. You'll see why it was not uploaded correctly. So teachers and students can be on the same file. You just have to remember to change the role, whether they're instructors, program admins, students would be learners, however you want that. Just make sure that column is correct, and then you can upload them both on the same spreadsheet if you'd like. Okay. Now, once we have the users in the account, you still won't be seeing this Courseware tab yet. What we have to do before then is we actually have to create a program. So remember how I said that as a district, I want to be running 3 separate programs. I want to run a year-long credit recovery program. I want to be running a program for students who need some first-time credit, and I'm going to be running a summer school program. This is how I keep everything separate. So I create a program. Now, if you say, hey, Kim, we're just running credit recovery, do we still need to do this? Yes. This is a step for everybody. Whether you have 1 program or you have 15, this needs to be done for each separate piece that you want. So I'm going to say this is my 20, 21, 22 credit recovery program. And I'm going to select Courseware. And then I could associate it with whichever school it needs to be associated with. So I could say, yep, that's what I want. And there it is. And then I could go back and say, okay, this is my 20, 21, 22 first time credit program. And same thing. These will look identical when I go into the Courseware program. I'm going to have the same library of courses. It's just now I can separate these out. So my teachers who are working with credit recovery don't need to mess with the kids who are doing this first time credit, so they won't see them, and vice versa. Okay. Now, before we leave this page and actually get into Courseware, I do want to talk about some settings over here first. And I'm just going to touch on these briefly, but the first setting up here is application. And I do want to show you some options that you have here. So in Courseware, there are 2 separate grades that you as administrators and teachers can see, and that is current grade and course grade. Current grades are just like what we typically see, right? They're based on everything a student has done up to this point. So if I see a student has, an 80% in the class, it's based on, how they're working through the first unit. They've gotten about halfway through. That's what that 80% is based on. I will also have a course grade that is cumulative and basically, encompasses how much of the course are they through. So even if they're only, let's say, a quarter of the way through the class, their course grade would reflect at about a 25%. So really, it's just how much of the course have you worked through and mastered and things like that. This is not something we typically show to students. You can allow them to see that, but it does often cause confusion. So I would just stick with allowing students to see the current grade. You have access to allow teachers to create classes if you'd like. You can adjust your time zone. And then over here is probably the most important part, because when you check this off, that allows for a single sign-on. So what does that mean? Well, it looks like this. When students and teachers go to our page here, they can either hit the Google or Microsoft button and go straight in. This is, again, if you're not using Clever or ClassLink. If you're using Clever and ClassLink, that would be a different process. But they can click here, and I can put in, I can just sign in through Google. Okay, I already had signed in, so it just, in the other browser, so it just took me right in. You can also use your school specific login. So this will provide a school specific URL. So if students are using Chromebooks, you can push that out to Chromebooks, and then it's just a, one click and they're in. Let's look at some other settings here. The only other one I really wanted to touch on right now is simply access settings. You get to decide when students can actually access the program. So you can say, oh, I don't want them in the program on Saturday or Sunday or something like that. You have control over when they access. My recommendation is usually to leave it just that they can access it at any point, especially if this is a credit recovery, something they're doing outside of the typical classroom setting. But that is up to you, so that's there as well. Let's get into our courseware program. So I'm going to set up my credit recovery program. So under courseware, I'm just going to click right here where I see my program in that drop down. And this, as an admin, is my landing page. This is where you're going to be spending a lot of time. So I'm going to kind of explain this, and then we'll get into the courseware library. And I'll show you a bit about what you may have in there. But what this allows you to do is see, first of all, a quick snapshot of the program. Hey, how many active courses do I have, active sections? How many students are working in here? And then I'm able to see the data separated out two different ways. I can see it course by course or student by student. Same information, just divvied out two different ways. Okay. The other button that you're going to have here is in the upper left-hand corner, and it's a menu button. So you're going to see, under the administration section, the exact buttons that we see going across the page here. This is the instructor section. Honestly, you don't really have to worry about that. That'll be for your teachers. And then you're going to see some other options down here. So course catalog, custom course builder, reports, classic reports, and manage pacing calendar. We're going to start in the course catalog. Now, before we get in here, I do need to explain that my demo account basically has everything that Edmentum sells. I have, all of the core courses, electives, CTE courses, languages, things like that. Your course catalog may well differ. In fact, it should, because I also have every single state's, state-specific curriculum in here. So yours should have your state's content if there's anything state-specific, and then also it'll be whichever library or libraries your school purchased. Okay, so if you see something in my account and you go, oh, wait, that's not in mine, just know that that was whatever your school district purchased. So I'm going to go in here. Whoops. Here we go. And you are able to see exactly what these courses look like. Now, I'm not going to go scroll through this whole list because it will make you very dizzy as I go down, but we're going to look at the courses themselves. So let's do Algebra 1 because that is always a big thing. And here's our National Algebra 1 course. So you will see that this is broken out by semesters. Semester A, Semester B. And the reason for this is, again, we try and make credit recovery easier, but also unit recovery easier. Because look, if I have a student who, let's say they squeaked by with a D the first 9 weeks, and then in the third 9 weeks really fell apart. For credit recovery, I might just decide, hey, this student only needs to redo the second semester of Algebra 1. And then they can, we'll average that grade together with what they got for first semester, and that will be their overall grade for the class. Okay, so you can go in and you can preview anything that's in here. So I can click right on my semester A, and again, this is just the first semester, so this would be the first 9 weeks of the class, this is what you're going to see. So you'll see the student orientation. You will also see a syllabus. So you can see the scope and sequence. Here's my standards that links to Common Core. And here's everything in each unit, as well as this is a very generalized pacing guide. This is based on the idea that students will have a full semester to complete this course. So now you can adjust that, not within the syllabus, within the course itself. But just so you know, within the syllabus, it's with the understanding that this would be a full semester's course. Okay, but you can see exactly what students will be expected to do in here. And then you can go down and see what's in the course. So each course has a pretest. This is going to be specifically helpful for students who are taking this for some sort of credit recovery or unit recovery. This pretest is exemptive, meaning if my students remember, hopefully something from Algebra 1 that they sat through for a full year, that, like for example, if my student gets the questions on expressions correct, they can exempt out of it. Okay. There are things like discussion activities. This is the actual textbook piece. So we're going to jump in here. I think we have enough time really quickly. So this is the direct instruction piece. This is where students learn about the different topics. So you can see, here's my table of contents. Now, please note, when I'm previewing this as an admin and when you go in, this is going to show you the answer keys. Obviously, students are not going to see that, but this is just one of the places that a teacher could go to get answer keys if they needed it. So you'll be able to see in here exactly what this looks like. You'll be able to see, there's definitions in here. Students will have some very specific tools. They'll be able to see a table of contents, so where they are within the lesson. There are also resources in here. Now, almost all of our courses and all of our core courses definitely have these guided notes included. I'm pointing this out because this is how strongly I believe in using these. These are editable PDFs that go along with each and every tutorial. So that means the student can just, type their answer here and follow along with this as they go through the tutorial. The reason why I like this so much is that I often find that students who are struggling learners, students who had trouble in the class to begin with the first time through, often tend to go through these tutorials and they think, okay, I think I was reading this carefully. I'm going through, I'm clicking through, I'm retaining this, I think. And then they get to the end and we present them with questions based on that tutorial and they go, uh-oh. These guided notes really do a great job of helping students slow down and process the information. So I'm going to highly recommend that students use these.
Hey, Kim.
Yes.
There's a question come in. Can you show how to get the direct link in settings?
Oh, absolutely. You mean to the single sign-on? I'm assuming.
Is that right? This is a question from Jasmine. Yes.
Okay. I'm going to show that at the end. We'll go back and look at that. Adam, don't let me forget.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks for the question.
Thanks, guys. Yep. So students will have some other tools here. There are text-to-speech readers. This reads in a very natural voice to students. So if you're planning on having them working in the library, working in a specific classroom, headphones are a must. Okay, all other tools that students will need to complete this are included in here. Okay, then we'll give them some practice. And then a mastery test, this is more just like a quiz. Students will get 10 questions from this specific question bank. Again, you're getting the answer key here. They have to get an 80% or better in order to show that they've mastered the topic, but we don't hold them to that 80% mastery standard, because especially in a credit recovery situation or a unit recovery situation, honestly, even a first-time credit situation, that can be pretty lofty for some students. So no matter what they get, you will see their scores, and so will the teacher. So if you've looked through this and you go, oh, yep, this looks good. Just so you know, too, there are larger activities that students can complete, course activities that extend out, ideas that they're learning in the class, unit activities that give students another way to demonstrate their mastery of the topics in this unit, post-test, end of semester tests, bigger assessments. If you look at this and go, yeah, this is exactly what I'm looking for, and this is what I want. What we need to do then as admins is create the class, put a teacher in the class, and put the students in the class. Once we do that, this is ready to set up and teachers can run with it. So what I'm going to do from here is I'm going to click this button that says new section. And I'm going to give it a name. Now, I am going to recommend that you name this very specifically. And please know that from my background, I'm coming from a background where I have seen some craziness in people's accounts, and sometimes where they've set things up and gone, oh, whose class is this? What was this for? What year was this from? So there are some specific things that I recommend. If you have, if you're using this for something like a unit recovery, so all of your core subject area teachers are going to be using this. What I would want to do is something like this. You know, my last name, English. Oh, I guess this is Algebra 1. Algebra 1. I can put, maybe I teach it, period 3. And this is for the 21-22 school year. If this is credit recovery, so great. I can do something like credit recovery, Algebra 1. And this is for, again, the 21-22 school year. So something that just tells you, what is this for? What is it? What year is it from?
Hey, Kim.
Yep.
Is there a place with the specific benchmarks and standards for courses? Is there like a report on this page?
There is. There are specific standards that go along with each of the units, and you can find that in the syllabus at the top of each course.
Show us where that is.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, let me cancel this out.
Sorry.
No worries. No, you're fine. Now I just need to find it. Sorry. I have way too much curriculum in this account. Honestly. Okay, here we go. So when you go into a course at the very top, this is one of the places, and I'll show you another where you can find this too. So with the standards, they are going to be listed right under here. Here's also a link out to our help page with standards in there. Okay, so you can see this is the Common Core one, but yep. But here's the standards right under each topic. The benchmark for you, I wouldn't necessarily call this a benchmark, but that pre-test will function very similarly to a benchmark for each unit, where, again, if students demonstrate that they already have mastery over doing expressions, the system will automatically exempt them out of that topic, versus, and it'll say, okay, you don't know, you still need to practice with linear equations and radical expressions, do that, but not expressions. And that's how that will work. Okay.
Another question just came in. What's the difference between Play-Doh and Accelerate?
That's a great question. So these Accelerate courses, so anybody looking, this is what we have here. We created these Accelerate courses right after the spring of 2020 when the country shut down. These courses were actually designed to address the learning loss that took place during those months that schools were closed. That being said, we have kept them in here because a lot of people feel like these are great courses to use for credit recovery, because all we did was we really said, okay, what are the true essential skills that a student would need to move from pre-algebra to algebra 1? So when you see something like accelerate to algebra 1, this would be for a student who's currently in pre-algebra. So what you'll see, essential learning, this is just one big list of topics here of what does a student need to know to be successful in algebra 1. So this is something else, but I have customers who are just like, oh, this is exactly what we need for credit recovery. Yeah, if they master these topics, then yes, they're absolutely, they can recover the course. The ones where you see the Plato course algebra 1, or if you see something like if you're, from Ohio, you see Ohio algebra 1, semester A, semester B, this would be the full algebra 1 course. Semester A, semester B together would be the full year course. Okay. So again, let's say I want to assign this algebra 1 course. I can do something, we'll just call it, we'll do CR algebra 1, 21, 22. I can't believe we're on that school year already. All right. So first thing I want to do is set a start date. Then I'm going to start, put an end date here. So let's say it's just, we'll make it into January. The reason why you want to start an end date, this will create the pacing guide for your students. So what it will do is it will say, okay, based on these dates, how many instructional days do we have? How many activities they have to do, and divide it up. Okay, I can add my teachers in here. You can also add multiple teachers if you need to. And then here you have a section description. That's for you. Here are student instructions. You can put in, whatever instructions you'd like to give your students here. Please don't touch the self-enroll button. That creates a disaster. I don't like that we even still have it. So just move on past it. Okay. And then you'll see here, you can save section without students or continue to students. So if you're not entirely sure, so let's say, for example, we're going into the fall, we know we have students who need credit recovery, but you haven't gotten the list from the guidance counselors yet, but you're going to need algebra 1, go ahead and set it up and save the section without students. We can put them in later. Otherwise, I can continue to students, and I can either browse the student directory and check off names here as far as who needs this specific course, or I can search for students by last name, whichever's easier. Okay. And then I'm going to save the section. And now when I go back to my homepage, you can see here is my course right here. And anytime I need to change these settings, let's say I need to adjust an end date, I need to add another teacher, I can always go back and fix those section settings. And then from here, your teachers can take this and start in with the management side of things and see how students are doing and so on. All right, let's see. Did I get everything here? Yep, I think we got everything. I know there was a question about going back for those single sign-on URLs, so I'm going to take us back there. So let's go back to the Administration Center. And where you will go to find those links is under Settings. And the very first option is Application. And once you check off either Google or Microsoft, the URL, that personalized URL will be right here, right underneath. Okay.
Okay, I have another question.
Yes.
It looks like that one got answered. Good. This was at the beginning. Is there a setting so students are able to overall course grade? There is displayed, this is at the very beginning. There is displayed information on the current grade, activities completed, but not the course grade overall. Is there a setting to address this?
Yes. So see how here I have separate checkboxes for allow learners
Ah,
to view current grade and allow learners to view course grade. So see how I only have the current grade checked? That means that when my students log in, all they will see is their current grade. They will not see the course grade. That being said, my instructors can still see the course grade. As the admin, I can still see the course grade, but the students will not.
cool.
Hey,
Okay,
you guys are asking great questions. Other questions?
good. Um, oh, here there's some, no, those are just thank yous for your answers. What other
Good.
challenges are people having on this?
And if there aren't, I want to show some help and support resources too.
I think go to it and I may
Okay.
cut you off.
Yeah, and if you're typing in questions, yeah, we'll get to those too.
Yeah.
So anywhere you are in courseware, whether you're physically within your courseware program or you're in your admin center, you are going to see this purple help center button up at the top. If you click on that, there are going to be a wealth of resources here. Now, these will change depending on where you are, because what it's going to do is it's going to address admin style content in the administration center. It'll be more teacher centric in the courseware program. So here you're going to be able to see some of the resources that we have here. So here, you know, if you go, oh, wait, I forgot what Kim said about how to upload students in here. If you click right here under this how-to tour, it's going to actually walk you through step by step. Okay. The other thing out here, you'll see the very first link at the top of this help center is the Learn and Support Courseware button. And what this is going to have is you'll see guides for administration center, guides for administrator, guides for instructors. There are also instructor materials for every state. So for example, I live in Pennsylvania. If I click on Pennsylvania, I'm able to see the instructor materials for all of the courses that are available for Pennsylvania, correlation reports as far as standards go, and things like that. Okay, so that's where some of the instructor materials are. Also, out on our support site at edmentum.com, there is a getting started page. And I'm hoping you already found this because you're here today. But if you haven't, right here is a getting started page for courseware. And what this has is everything administrator orientation. So this goes all through what we did today, right? Instructor orientation, what teachers need to go through day to day. You know, brief overview of step by step. Oh wait, how do I add the users? Here you go, right here. There's also best practices out here. You know, using courseware to help keep students from falling behind. Student orientation videos. Key features of courseware. You know, ways to support parents and family, and different ways you can implement courseware and those best practices around that. So this is something you'll want to. The other thing I would really strongly recommend you and your teachers kind of attending, if you have any questions about courseware as you're getting started and you're working through this, we offer live office hours. Okay, they are Thursdays. Keep in mind, these times are listed in Central Time. So if you're Eastern like me, it's an hour. You know, this would actually be 1 to 2. If you're in Mountain Time, it would be 11 to 12. So just so you know, too, you don't have to stay on the whole hour. You can jump on, ask your question, jump right back off, get on with your day. If you have student-centric questions, we can pull you out into breakout rooms so we can preserve that student privacy. So let me put this in chat just
I
so that
already
you
did.
have it. Oh, you're the best.
I dropped it in there and I have a question for you.
Best. Yes.
Is there a way to remove students from past years?
Yes, that is a great question. Yes, there is. So what you can do if you have a large batch of students that need to be removed from the system, hey, I just inherited this account. We've had it for 10 years. We have kids that graduated 10 years ago still in the account. Up above the first name column, so I'm in the users tab and under manage, you can export a list of all of the users in the account. Now, what I want you to do here, this is going to sound silly, but it works, is there will be a status column. Anybody who's active in the system, if you don't want them active anymore, you change active to inactive, just like that. And then you go to users, batch processing, and you re-upload this with everybody who you wanted to make inactive. You don't have to take out the people who are still active. You can just leave all that information in there. It will not create duplicate accounts. But you say inactive for anybody who you want to archive. You upload. And what it does is it archives your users. So what's nice about that is you're not deleting any data. You're not deleting any information. If for whatever reason you would ever need to come back and review that, you can always still pull reports on that student in those classes. Alternatively, individually, if I wanted to just make somebody inactive, actions, deactivate user. Okay. The delete user button is just decorative there. If they've even logged in once, if there's any sort of data associated with the person, it won't let you delete them. So you just deactivate. And that's why you'll have over here a status filter. So I could see any inactive users that I have. Okay, and I can reactivate any of these people at any time. Great question. Other questions?
Yeah, what other questions? And we're winding down here. And let me give you a little housekeeping as we're waiting for questions to come to you. We'll send you a recording, possibly by tomorrow. I'm going to flip this over and upload it to YouTube. We'll send you the slides that Kim went through. I put a link to the certificate of attendance in the chat. That'll also be sent again tomorrow, so don't worry about it. When you leave, there's a post-session survey. Please fill it out so we know how we're doing and what we can do better. Thank you, Kim, for taking time today. No more questions are popping in, but
Right.
people are still here. Here's one. Here's one. Do students get 2 attempts to pass a quiz? If they fail, do they get locked out?
That is a great question. So yeah, let's go back and let's look at that Algebra 1 course so we can look at the content. So here, I know this is exactly what you're asking over here. So yes, when students, let me get into the curriculum so we can see this while I'm talking. So yes, so let's look at this and say, I'm a student, I'm going through expressions. So I go through my tutorial, I go through my practice, I take my mastery test. I get a 60%. Okay, that's not mastery. What will happen is this mastery test will lock. Now, students can still go on. And the reason we let them still go on after this is because, I mean, really, a lot of our students started in this program as credit recovery. I mean, it's certainly grown and shifted since then, but we still have a lot of credit recovery students in here, and we don't want to force them to get 80% before moving on because we know we're at risk of losing a lot of those students. They'll get frustrated, they'll give up, they'll quit. I mean, worst case scenario, they drop out of school, and we certainly don't want that. So we allow them to go on. But teachers have control over, locking things and deciding hey, you need to go back and do this again. So let's say, again, I got a really low score on this mastery test. If you were my teacher, you could say, hey, Kim, go back and try it again. So what I can do is I can go back through the tutorial, do the tutorial again, and the mastery test will unlock and give me another chance. Now, teachers can set how many chances students have to do that. They can leave it on unlimited. My personal preference for my students was to limit it to 2 additional chances. So that means they had the first time through and then 2 additional chances. Because quite frankly, if they were in that tutorial 3 times, they tried the mastery test 3 times, if they're still not doing well, something's going on, whether they're not paying attention and doing what they're supposed to do, or they're genuinely confused. As a teacher, that's where I need to intervene. But teachers can set that as well.
Great.
Great.
Okay, one more.
Yep.
You mentioned replacing a failing grade, but once they complete the course, isn't it pass fail?
That's
that
up
what
to
you
your
said?
district policy.
Oh,
Ours was, yeah, that would really be your district policy as far as we give you the numerical scores, right? We should show you, here's what they got on their assessments, here's their grade. It's up to you to decide what to do with that grade. So like in my district, what we used to do was like if a kid failed first semester and redid it, we would average the grades together. I know other schools who replace it outright. I know schools who just say, okay, whatever then you get in courseware, that's the grade that's going on your report card. Some say, okay, you can if you pass the grade or if you pass the course in courseware, you get a D on your report card. It's just automatically you get a 65. So it's really up to district policy to decide how you want to do that. Good questions. Other questions? Oh,
yeah, thank you. No questions at this second. But we are gonna go to one, so if stuff comes up as you're sitting here thinking about it, like we have a core group, some people dropped out, but we still have people interested.
good.
Kim, what else do you see as a challenge?
Just keeping students engaged. I would say really no matter how you're implementing courseware, the biggest thing is communication and building relationships between teachers and students. Students need to know that someone is there watching them, supporting them, caring about them. They need to know who they can go to for support and for questions if they need it. And just having that connection with the teacher is everything. I mean, and really being very intentional about when you check in with a student, how frequently you're checking in with that student. Students at this, no matter what age, whether it's, they're in kindergarten, they're seniors in high school, they need someone there to just be supportive, to make sure they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, staying on track, and just having those weekly check-ins can really make a difference.
But here's a question just came in.
Mhm.
Can you stop the mastery from locking when students are allowed to work anytime?
No, if here's the reason I chose 2 additional chances for my students. And again, this is just a personal recommendation. This is just, kind of what worked for my students. My students were 100% virtual. I never saw them. A lot of my students were doing work at, 2, 3 in the morning when I was very happily sleeping. I still left it at 2 because what they could do then is they could, hey, you still have work to do. Great. Just go on to the next module. All I wanted there was a checkpoint because, honestly, 3 times through a tutorial, 3 times through a mastery test, a 4th time is not going to make a difference. I really needed to intervene at that point. That's kind of what I found over the years. So I would let them, hey, either go on, but you have to check back in with me. And locking, because keep in mind that 2 additional chances, what they were able to do was go, tutorial mastery test, the initial time through. Then if they didn't score well enough, the mastery test would lock. Then they could go back through the tutorial on their own without any intervention from me. unlock the mastery test, and then do that an additional time. So they really had those 3 times through before I was stopping them as a checkpoint to say, okay, look, if you've been through 3 times, yeah, you need to talk to me. You need to come to office hours. So it really does work, because what that lock is really a symbol to them to say, hey, you missed something here and you need to go back and try it again.
Good. Okay, well, let's wrap it up. Thank you, Kim. Thanks for joining us,
All right.
everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Have a great back to school season, and we'll see you on the next webinar. Check out our other resources and that getting started page. Have a great one. Take
Thanks,
care. Bye, kids.
everyone.
Okay. Did we end it? No, we ended. I'll just end it for all.